Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Unstuck movement. I'm your host, Rob Z. This platform was created to help you break the chains that are holding you back in your life, personally and professionally. Today, we have the wonderful Josee Madison with us on the podcast. And Josee, I love to jump into a question right off the bat. And this is a great concept, and I can't wait to learn about this. So decoding our heart, right? You have this method of a heart decoder, and I'm just curious, just what does that mean, and how can we decode our heart?
Thank you, first of all, to have me on your podcast. I'm so excited. I watch yours and other videos, and I just really love the questions that you ask us. And I was looking forward for this one. So thank you so much for having me here. Heart Decoder is not so much what you do for yourself as what I do for you. Let me give you an example. When I was a kid, my mom was talking to someone, or I was listening, to someone else talking at the grocery store, but I could hear nuances that meant other things. And I think I was picking up either on the body language, but more on the audio version. So, for example, I remember when I was a kid, my mom was talking to my aunt. And my aunt's like, "Oh yeah, I think this is what I'm going to do." And out of the blue, I just said, "No, that's not true." And so I realized that when I'm speaking with someone, there are nuances of their heart that they're not acknowledging that I can hear. So basically, the best way to explain it is almost like we're two people. So also for me, when I hear someone speak, there's certain words that pop out. And I'm like, okay, this is really what they're struggling with. This is really what is going on. And so a friend, the reason why I became a Heart Decoder is in my old life, I was a music tour manager, and I would say to someone, well, no, I think this is what's going on. And they're like, you're in our hearts all the time. You're kind of like a heart decoder, like you decode everything. And it stuck to me because I believe, for me, I guess it's a gift, and I teach others how to decode their heart in that same way. So if you're saying something, make sure that what you're saying and what you're feeling are the same thing. I live in the South, and there's a saying that goes, "Oh, bless her heart." Really, it means something else, So it's basically that way. If you're honest with what you're saying and what you're feeling, everything will align. And so as a Heart Decoder, for me, my clients come in and they say, okay, this is what's going on. I'm struggling with this. Or I hear an interview that they've done, but there's words that I picked up. And when we have our call, because I work with high profile individuals. And so I'm like, I was watching your interview and these are the words that were said. And I think this is what the struggle is. And they're like, oh, you're right. How can I own that within? And so when you're speaking, when you come to terms with truly your feeling and your thinking, they combine. And so as a Heart Decoder, that's my job, is to help you decode these little messages so that you can feel more aligned with what you truly want to say or who you truly are.
I love that, because that is so important and such a so just to give you some background on me, it's interesting. I wrote a chapter in an anthology that I was in on how to become your true self, right? It's so like it's the art of becoming you. And this came to me because when I was young, it was like I had a version inside of me that I didn't know how to get out. And so I would speak most of the time out of alignment with who I actually was, because I wasn't able to like say the things I really wanted to say or say the things that needed to be said, and it was a people pleasing defense mechanism. Not saying it's completely gone, but I've been working on it for a long time. And I think that's where a lot of when you say alignment, it's a lot of where our self-esteem comes from, our self-worth comes from, and our integrity, right? If we're not saying what we mean, we're out of integrity with ourselves, which means there's a disconnect within us. And so it's really hard. What I found then too, if you're out of alignment with yourself, if you're not integrous, then you also don't see integrity in others. And so you're going to like misread people all the time. But when you're in alignment with yourself, you're not going to misread people, because you don't misread you. You keep promises to yourself so you know you. And one of the hardest things in life, I think, especially if you're in that people-pleasing kind of state, is being and saying what you want to say and what you want to do, and sticking true to those things.
Mhm.
It's one of the hardest things.
Yeah, as you know, as a kid, I've always been told, even my friends would say, "You're so serious. Like you have such serious questions." You know, I would ask my mother, "What's after the sky? Why does it go black at night? Why is it blue during the day?" Like she would see, "Josee, you're driving me crazy." I think I was born a philosopher. Like seriously, I would spend hours trying to figure out stuff that people didn't even care about. But for
Yeah.
me, they were so important to understand. And I saw myself as growing up wanting to please others because I was like, okay, I can't be too serious. I'm too serious, you know, and I hid that from me for a long time until I realized that my seriousness is a lot of what people need, is for
Mm.
me to call them on their BS as in belief system, you know, and connect to their self. For me, self means sacred eternal life force,
Hmm.
your heart. That's yourself. Connecting to yourself is basically connecting to your higher force, yourself, your heart. And when my mom used to say, "Oh my gosh, you're so selfish. All you think about is just, you know, blah, 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 blah." And I'd be like, "That's actually a compliment, Mom, because selfish to me is being connected to my heart." And then again, she would be like, "What are you talking about?" And so I, in a way, felt frustrated because I never felt understood. But it's not because people didn't understand me. Like you said, I didn't see myself the way my insides were. I was playing a game of not necessarily people pleasing, but I wanted to say things for people to agree with.
Yeah.
But in my mind, I was contradicting myself, you know, because I am a serious person. Like my husband, we have like deep conversations about all types of things. And I'm like, "You're my perfect husband," because he doesn't mind to go deep in conversation as well, you know? And so I really started honoring that when I was 41.
Hmm.
I always say I started really living and becoming in tune with myself when I was 41. And my life transformed when I accepted who I was. And, you know, Rob, we're born to stand out. We're not born to blend in. If we were born to blend in, we would all look alike, think alike. And, you know, so I encourage my clients to embrace their uniqueness with their self and who they are.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. For sure. You know, and it's okay. So before we go any further, I just want to pause. We have to introduce the show. This is the Unstuck movement, true testimonies of breakthrough, right? So I bring people on the show who've had incredible breakthroughs in their life to show you and prove to you it's possible for you to have those breakthroughs also. And those breakthroughs are personal and professional. They usually go hand in hand.
Mhm.
You can't grow professionally without growing personally. And the podcast is sponsored by the Connected Leaders Academy. So check out connectedleadersacademy.com. Over 400 heart-centered servant leader entrepreneurs working together to serve one another and help each other grow. And also, I want to encourage anybody listening or watching right now, if you're the go-to authority at what you do and you want to be known as the expert in your field, you want to be known as that person who is the expert at what you do, you want to leave a lasting impact on people's lives, and you also want to make incredible connections that expand your personal and your professional life, I encourage you to launch your own platform. You can do that with me with the Pro Podcaster Academy. You can join the waitlist right now at robzwentz.com. Josee Madison with us today, a transformational coach and creator of the Heart Decoder method. She helps midlife professionals reconnect with their purpose and clarity through her Spiritually S.M.A.R.T.E.R framework. She empowers individuals to embrace their true selves. And Josee, I think it's really interesting because there's this is said a bunch of different times, but I know it's true for myself. There's a turning point at 40, right, where it's almost like a second life, like where you start to step into more of who you are. So it's no coincidence that that happened for you at 41. And I'm curious, how has that played out? So like okay, you have like this revelation and you step into, more of who you were created to be. I'm always curious, how does that change the relationships in your life? because I think as people
Wow.
start to change, well, not as I think, I know, as you start to change, your environment starts to change, the people around you start to change,
Mhm.
people start to be gravitated towards you, gravitated away from you, or repelled from you. How did that start to shift your personal life?
I had a boyfriend once who said to me, Jose, you're putting your needs on who you would like to be on me. What you're saying that I need to be, you're the one who wants that for you.
Mm.
And I was like, what are you talking about? I was in the denial phase of my needs, really, but that was a long time ago. And I still remember that. And at 40, when I had I want to say a change of heart, but I was struggling with some abuse with alcohol, and I was just lost. I just was so disconnected from myself. I didn't even know who I was, and I used alcohol to numb the pain and to try to escape. And so at 41, I had this, I guess you can call it rock bottom, and I thought, I can't do this to myself anymore. I've got to start learning what I'm putting on others of what what you are, what you need. Instead of saying that to others, I need to say this to me. And I've learned over the years that when you point one finger at one, there's three back at you. And so the work had to come from me. And I started seeing different relationships disappear. And I had to be okay with that because,
Mhm.
and again, I quote my mom, she would always say, because I wasn't a troublemaker, but man, I just took so many risks in my life. I drove my mom crazy. But anyway, and she would say, Jose, tell me who your friends are, and I will tell you who you are.
Mm.
And so when I started seeing friends of quality and attention and um, true love, I started seeing the change in me because whoever you are, whatever you is around you is a reflection of who you are. And especially in my sobriety, I did a lot of deep work, spiritual work to really hone in on what I wasn't taking responsibility about myself. What
Mm.
am I not admitting to myself? It's one thing to say it, but is it another thing? It's another thing to admit it and to own it. And so my relationship started changing. I met my husband when I was sober, and he's a completely different type of person that I attracted. He is, I would have never looked at him 20 years ago than when I had my transformation because it was pure heart, you know. And I know that perhaps we'll talk about this later about the limiting beliefs and trusting the flow. I added in my spiritual um, development actions that reflected what I wanted to attract, if that makes any sense. Like I was doing things, okay, if this is who I want to be, then I want this other person to be that way as well. So I have to become it so I can recognize it in someone else, you know?
Yeah, absolutely.
And my life is completely different. I can count on my fingers the amount of friends I have, and that's okay because I believe today in quality over quantity. I've been in a type of business where it's very superficial, so I didn't want that. I wanted to honor who I truly was, and it wasn't going to be where I was, at that moment. I had to completely change and understand who I am, my beliefs, and the work I needed to do. It started within.
Yeah, it always does. It takes maybe a while to realize, oh shoot, I got to change the stuff inside
Hmm.
before I can change the things outside. And it's interesting. It really is very fascinating that like your circle changes. People naturally just gravitate away from you. Like you don't have to, like, when you hear that, like the sum total your five closest friends, and you hear like that sort of stuff, and you're like, oh no, I got to change my circle. It'll happen. I mean, it's not
Hmm.
going to happen overnight, but it'll happen over time. But then also embracing it and being like, oh, that's okay. This is how it's supposed to
Yes,
go.
it is
That
okay
can be
because
hard.
you outgrow. I broke up a friendship 25 years ago. I've known this person since I was 18, and it was very toxic. But I had this guilt of like, oh man, we're childhood friends, and I can't let her go. And if I let her go, I'm not there for her when she has hard times and da 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 da. And this friendship was based on guilt. And when I started growing up and becoming more emotionally mature, I thought, no, I've outgrown this person and it's okay. I need to step away from that so I can grow even more. And there is no place for guilt.
Yeah.
Because the reason why we feel guilty is because we want the situation to change so we don't feel bad about leaving.
Right.
So I can't feel bad about leaving. And so then there's no more guilt. So I have to move on. Guilt is just, I want to change what the matter is right now, but I can't because I know that I can't. And if you don't go with your flow, you're going to find a lot of resistance, obstacles in your life. That's because you're not moving with your own flow that your heart is guiding you towards. That's why there's resistance.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm curious, going back to, you mentioned about the words you pick up on. Mm-hmm. Like, what does that mean exactly? Like, do you have an example?
Yes, I do.
That's an interesting topic.
So I have a very good friend, and I talked to her when we were in Vegas. I said, can I mention you, like your stories? She's like, oh, absolutely. I'm not going to mention her name, but she was like, yeah, sure. So she was going to school to get a promotion. She had to have a specific degree to get a promotion. And she was newly married. And she also wanted to start a family. One day we're going for a walk and she's like, oh, I would really like to get my degree before I get pregnant. And it's really important for me to get that before I start my family. Fine. Okay. So a few months down the road and we're going for walks, our regular walks, and she would get so frustrated that she can't get pregnant. What is wrong with me? I need to go for probably fertility tests. I can't seem to get pregnant, and maybe there's something wrong with me. And I'm like, no, there isn't, and she was struggling. And one day I said, hey, we have to have a talk. I said, you are not going to get pregnant, not right away and not soon. And she was very angry at me. And she said, well, why do you say that? You're supposed to be my supporter. I said, I am. Let me tell you why I support you. And let me tell you how I support you. You are not going to get pregnant until you get your degree because you've said it already. Your desires, your deepest desires, when you said it, it was so important that your attention was going to be on your degree. But your ego wants the family. But your heart knows what the order of things need to get done first. And she looked at me and she said, I never said that. I'm like, well, yes, you did. And so she was a little bit angry at me, but I said, trust the process, trust the flow. In your heart that it's going to happen. You can't force it. You've already put in order what you want. So we didn't talk for a few weeks, and I found like, oh, here I go again. I was too serious, and I maybe lost my friend that I love and adore, but I have to let it go. She called me maybe about a month later, and we went for our normal walk. And I said, how you doing? She's like, oh, I'm a little frustrated, but I'm happy at the same time. And I'm like, okay, what's going on? And she said, well, I was supposed to graduate in the spring next year, but the course that I want, they don't offer it. They only offer it in the fall. So I'm going to have to take 2 courses, but I'll end up graduating in December. Funny enough, I was supposed to graduate in April, but I'm due in March. And I said, so she looked at me and she started crying. She said, I don't know if I believe you or if this is juju or woo woo, but she says, this is so weird how it happened. I found out I was pregnant and she said to herself, Josee was wrong. And when she found out her due date was like March, she's like, see, Josee was wrong. I'm supposed to graduate in April. And then she found out through the school that she was actually graduating in December because she couldn't take the course in the spring. So she graduated before she had the baby. So I had heard the order that she was talking about, but she hadn't gotten that, So for me, I hear those deep wishes with words and order of things where it's like, no, she won't get pregnant. No, it won't happen, But so that I don't, hopefully that's a good example of the things that I hear and I bring forward to you to say, if you're okay with this, this is truly what you mean.
Mm.
And, she was trying to prove me wrong, but I'm like, I'm just bringing it up for what I felt and understood and heard, through your words. So,
Yeah, that's really good. And it's amazing how it played out that way.
mhm.
And it's really cool too because sometimes we're saying the hardest things to say. That's like going back to this whole integrity thing and
Mhm.
saying what you need to say, because the thing you need to say, and this is how leadership goes. You're going to say things that are hurtful, people don't agree with at the moment, right? But you have to be
But why
confident.
would you say they're hurtful? And this is a question to you. I don't know. I know you're questioning me, but I would love to know your take on when we say the truth. And my mom would always say, the truth hurts.
There you go.
And so if we don't admit the truth in ourselves, we're not going to, we're only fooling ourselves.
Yeah.
We're not
But,
fooling any other
that's
person.
what I'm saying, right? If I say, because you're going to tell people the truth in things that
Mhm.
it's going to hurt them. They're going to be like, ugh. But over time, if you're following, if you know this is, because like you said, and like when you know and you can see it, because we can always see things in other people way easier than we can see them in ourselves. And like this is gonna be painful, but this is going to, as long as you say it from a place of love and you say it in the right intention, not because some people are like a bull in a china shop and they'll say the things that need to get said, but they're gonna destroy a lot by saying I have
Well, I
some
mean,
people I have
yes
some
and
people in my
no.
life like that.
But it depends on where they're coming from. It depends on their perception, because if somebody says something to hurt you, it says more about them than you.
Oh, no, what
You
I'm
know?
saying is they're saying truths, but they don't say them well, right? So it's learning how to say truths well, because you
Yeah.
can't say, you could tell somebody the truth, but you could say it in a way that destroys them, or you could lead somebody, and that's what I've learned over my years of personal development, is like asking people the right questions to help them come to conclusions. I don't need to tell anybody anything. I don't need to tell anybody
Mhm,
what to do, because it's not going to do them any good or me
mhm,
any good.
mhm.
It might feel good in the moment. Oh, I finally said it to them, right? But
But
the fact,
it depends on what you wanna say. I remember when I was 25 and I was 4 months before the wedding, and I knew that I didn't wanna get married. I knew that it wasn't the right person. He wanted me to have kids and announce that I was pregnant, and I was like, I told you I don't think I want children. I'm career oriented, and I'm not ready for this. I'm too young." And I was taking a personal development course at that point, and I went to my mentor and I said, I'm really struggling here. I'm 4 months before the wedding, and I don't think I should do it." And he looked at me and he said, "Don't waste my time and don't waste your breath. You already know the answer. Move on." And he turned around and I was like, "Oh my God, this guy is so mean. He's hurt me. I'm so hurt." And then I went to my best friend and I talked about it for hours. But then I realized talking to my best friend for hours being a victim didn't help me. He helped me see the victor
marrying
in
that
me.
guy when you didn't want to marry him wasn't going to help you.
Exactly. So when he said that to me, it really shocked me. But then I thought, dang, he's right. I just didn't want to hear it.
Exactly. Yeah.
And
So
so
it hurt in the moment.
it hurt in the moment. And then when I was being the victim and talking for hours with my girlfriend, I was like, but what I'm doing with her doesn't help me.
Mm.
What he did hurt in the moment is just because I didn't want to, I was afraid to move forward. I already knew the answer. I was afraid. And I wanted him to give me the answers on how to do it. And I was like, that's not how it's going to work.
Yeah.
And so even today, I mean, yes, I agree with you that sometimes we see in others easier than what we see in ourselves. And I've really learned to listen to my own flow. And the last years, maybe about 10 years, I've been able to see things and I'm like, no. Okay, well, when is it going to happen? Like my heart would say, yes, you're going the right way, but just not now. And I'd be like, but what am I going to do in the meantime? So, but that's the thing that we're stuck on is we want things now. We already know our way through. We just want it to give it, like, we don't want the in-between part that drive us crazy. And the in-between part is where you learn most about yourself.
That's where you learn everything. Yeah. That's where all the
Yes.
growth comes from. We don't want the discomfort either, right? The discomfort, but the discomfort causes you to grow. It's just like a necessary part of the process.
Well, hey, you got to break a couple of eggs to make an omelet, right?
Yeah. Just don't break my eggs. You know,
Exactly.
break somebody else's eggs. So, right, real quick, we got to jump into the sponsor of the podcast. When we come back, though, I want to talk about, so this is a great conversation, but I want to talk about taking that science and enhancing spiritual growth with science, and what you mean by that, and how you practically do that in what you do, because we tend to separate those two, when I think science proves the spiritual realm much more than disproves it. So we'll dive into that when we come back. Are you struggling to make consistent, valuable content for yourself? Do you want to have an efficient and effective way to create content that attracts the people that you want to connect with in life, the people you want to build relationships with in business? Do you want to be the go-to authority at what you do, at what you're great at? Would it be helpful for you if you had a platform that connects you to incredible people in your industry? The kind of platform that gets you leads and lands you clients without you having to beat down anybody's door or blow up anybody's inbox. Whether you're already creating content or you're desiring to start and it's something that's been kind of burning inside of you for a while, I urge you and encourage you to check out the Pro Podcaster Academy. Get started right now. Join the waitlist at robzwentz.com.
Hi, my name is Josee Escobar, and I'm the founder and CEO of the Connected Leaders Academy. We're a growing tribe, a community of entrepreneurs all over the world globally. If you're an entrepreneur and you're looking to grow personally and professionally, scale your influence, develop your skill sets, move the needle in your business, more clients, more money, more profit, the bottom line, and of course, grow your circle and your network like never before, join the Connected Leaders Academy today. Check me out on Instagram and on Facebook, the @ JASCO25. We look forward to having you join us. Take care.
So I'm curious, Jose, when you talk about science, using science to enhance spiritual growth, what do you mean by that practically?
So basically, any spiritual practice you're going to use has a science results, or has a science connection to it. For example, meditation, or let's simplify that, deep breathing. Spiritually, there's an exercise where you enhance your breath. Deep breath in, deep breath out. That's the spiritual aspect of your practice. Then the science dives in and chimes in with activating your vagus nerve, which means spiritually you worked on breathing, but scientifically your body reacted to your spiritual practice. Activating the vagus nerve activates also the parasympathetic system, which is the calm and rest side of your nervous system. So a lot of people in spirituality, or that don't know about spirituality, and I was one too, because I'm very logical. I'm always in my head, why is this? Why is that? So when I started to learn more about spirituality, I had to attach something logical to it, because I was like, well, it doesn't make sense. And spirituality for me was like smelling of patchouli and flowers in your hair and love is life and, the 1960s peace and love kind of a thing. But then I thought, oh my God, it's so much deeper than that. Spirituality is understanding my spirit, and attached to science is understanding the effects of my body when I use my spirit. And so, anything of what you say can activate certain parts of your brain, the amygdala, or, the prefrontal cortex, if you want to make decisions. Anything you say will activate your body in a scientific way. Quantum physics, everything is energy. That is science. If you bring yourself into a spiritual realm of a meditation and focusing on things that you desire in life, you get into a specific energetic field. Science kicks in with quantum physics. Different frequencies vibrate at different rates. And so this is how I teach my high profile achievers to implement spirituality so that they can logically make sense of it and make it easier for them to understand, because that's how I had to learn.
Yeah, and I mean that's same here, being logical, and then being like what, but also being I definitely was spiritual at the same time. It's like, how do you connect these two? And just to go off of what you're saying, to add to it, being a Christian, right? So I believe in the Holy Spirit, right? And the Holy Spirit is the Spirit of God that is available to everybody. And what are the qualities of the Holy Spirit? They're amazing qualities. So it's love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, and self-control. So if you step into that spirit, those are the qualities you're going to experience. And it's like, okay, well, you talk about your parasympathetic nervous system, right? Or is that how you say it? Am I saying it right?
Yeah.
If you're like, okay, so if I'm feeling love and joy and peace and patience, and I'm feeling kindness and goodness, like, how good is my body going to feel?
Exactly.
How am I going to react to the world? Right. So it's really incredible. I love that, because instead of, because so often you see science trying to disprove the spiritual realm, but no, it's actually the exact opposite. It's proving it, and it's an outcome. Like our bodies, feeling the way the way we show up is an outcome of the vibration that because everything's vibrating, right? We vibrating at different frequencies. And so I love that, because I have people in my life that are very logical, and they can't, like, you can't get this stuff through to them,
because we want things that are palpable, right? We want to see things, we want to feel things, we want to hear things, we want to understand things. And so for me, this is my best way to teach spirituality, by using scientific results of a spiritual practice. And my SMART-E.R journey, each acronym is a spiritual step. S is for self-awareness. How do we develop self-awareness? Mindfulness, M. A is authenticity. R is resilience. T is trust. E is emotional intelligence. And R is to review and reflect all of these steps that you put together in a spiritual way. But in the end, it has scientific results. So they can't be separate. And for me, in terms of God, I was raised French Catholic. And so I love God. I pray to Mary every day. She's my girl. And then when I learned spirituality, I was like, oh, there's a difference between religion, which is a doctrine and a belief in something, and there's spirituality that is a belief in me. I just recently sold it, but I'm the founder of a wellness center here in Columbia, South Carolina. And when I opened my center, a lot of people balked at the idea that I was introducing a new religion. And I said, I'm not introducing a new religion. I'm adding spirituality to your religion, because religion is you pray to someone. Spirituality enhances, and it makes you hear what you pray for.
Spirituality enhances and lets you hear what you pray for. Is that what you?
Exactly.
What do you mean by hear?
Okay, so for example, when you pray, you are grateful for things. You pray for the health of someone. You pray for this. You pray for that. You pray for answers. What's my next move? When you're spiritual, you're meditating, you're listening for answers. You get your answers through quiet time. Because when you're in prayer, you talk. When you're in meditation, you listen. And so I was able to explain people that were religious here who were not comfortable with yoga and Reiki and energetic work. I tried to simplify it. I'm like, here's the thing. It will complement your religion. You will hear God much easier. And for those who don't believe in God, then I go into the spirituality and science. But it's all connected. But there's different ways to explain it to different people.
Yeah, it's really interesting that, one of my favorite quotes in the Bible is, be still and know that I am God. And so what does that mean? I mean, to me, that means I am going to be still, and I am going to let go of all of my thoughts. I'm going to surrender them all to God. And God wants me to be in that meditative state, because that's when he shows up and that's when he speaks to you. Right. So that is essential to the process. And the only thing that I would throw in there is when I'm meditating on the word of God. Right. But I've been embracing this recently of like, I clearly felt I was running myself kind of ragged a couple of months ago. And I dropped my son off at school and I was going to get my hair cut, but the haircut place wasn't open for like a half an hour. So I'll sit in my car and I'm going to pray and I'm going to read the Bible and just going to chill in my car for a minute. But I was like, it was always a plan of doing. And I clearly felt God say to me, just let go. Just let go. Because I hadn't done that in such a long time. And so I sat there just in silence for like a half an hour, and it was phenomenal. It was so good. And it gave me this clarity of like, right, God doesn't want me to, it's not about doing, it's about just being. And there's a relationship that's built there. And that's one of the things that I struggle with, is the whole concept of talking about the universe, because I struggle with the universe. The universe is very impersonal, and God is very a personal God. Jesus is personal. Like that's a person. And so I love the personal relationship of like, I'm not talking to the ether, I'm talking to specifically someone. And that really, for me is powerful. So,
and I totally get it. I get where you're coming from. I see your point. Definitely. I think what I've learned through my growth of religion and spirituality is that I had to be open. Thou shalt not judge. I had to be open that someone may have the God of their own understanding, and this is why also that I teach understanding yourself, your heart, because I think your heart for me is connected to my divine, connected to my God. And that's where I get my guidance. And so it's easier for people who don't believe in God for me to say, follow the guidance of your heart. But really, it's follow the guidance of a divine, a strength bigger than you that you don't even understand. You call it God, some call it Jesus, some call it, it's not up to me to decide who to believe in. I know what I believe in, but what they need to find is what they believe in, and I think that's the most important teaching that for myself need to understand, that not everybody's going to have the same God as me. And I have to be okay with that,
Yeah. And pray for people on their journeys, right?
Yeah.
Everybody's on their own journey.
Exactly.
This, I can barely tell myself what to do, let alone tell somebody else what to do.
Right? Exactly.
So I can guide, but then it's like, I pray for them and pray for the best for them. And I think that's the most beautiful part of, like what do we do? Like, that's the question that always comes up. What do I do? How do I get this person to understand this? How do I get this person? You don't just pray for them. And what's going to happen is going to happen. They're on their own journey, and that's okay.
Yeah,
that's how it's supposed to be. So I find that to be really powerful. As we're coming to the end of this episode, I want to mention, you said about being such a serious person, but I love talking about like deep things also. And I could talk about deep things all day long, but at the same time, there's a very goofy side of me. Like,
yes,
extremely goofy, but I can also be extremely serious, and I can kind of be both at the same time. So I wanted to ask you, there's got to be also a very goofy side of you, because there's
a very goofy side of me. Like yesterday, it was Sunday, and I wore my pajamas with super bright red lipstick, and my husband's like, what's up with that? And I'm like, I don't know, I just feel like having bright red lips. And he's like, okay, you're so weird. We've been married for 12 years. I sing to my cats. I do have a very unique, like my husband says, I married you because you were weird, I'm like, okay, well, that's a good thing, because I'm never boring. I always say, isn't it fun to have a goofy wife? And he's like, it's really fun.
Yeah. Who wants normal, boring?
Exactly. People, exactly. And so, yes, I do have a I balance quite in a good way, in the sense that I can allow myself to be goofy and do what feels right for me, what feels fun for me. And I love having the looks of my husband going, and I'm like, yes, I got that.
Yeah, I love it. Well, Josee, this has been an awesome conversation. I want to encourage people to check out what you're doing. So you have a newsletter. They can subscribe to the newsletter by going to your LinkedIn, linkedin.com. And it's Josee Madison, Josee Madison. So make sure you connect with her on LinkedIn, subscribe to the newsletter, and also remind you, if you want to be the authority in your space, the expert in your field, you want to check out what it's like to launch your own platform, go to robzwentz.com right now. Anything you want to leave the audience with before we sign off?
Just do it. Feel your weirdness, feel your heart or the God that you understand, and know that, you're going to be okay. You are going to be okay no matter what. So far, you've survived 100% of your obstacles, right? So what says that you won't survive the next one? You're good.
It's good advice. You've made it this far. You're here right now, aren't you? You've
Exactly.
overcome every day, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. It's a good point to remember, because every day we can feel like we're not overcoming something. Listen, you made it to the next one.
Exactly.
You could have not made it to today.
Absolutely.
I love that. Another true testimony of breakthrough. Until next time, this has been the Unstuck Movement.